One morning, she opened her front door and stopped. Right there on her doorstep sat a snow-white cat, and what she was doing made her stomach drop. The cat had just given birth, but one of the newborns hadn't made it, and the mother was doing what cats sometimes do with young that don't survive. But beside her, one tiny kitten was still alive, still breathing. She didn't hesitate. She scooped up that kitten and brought it inside, and from that moment on, that tiny life was hers. There was no manual for what came next. The kitten had no mother, no warmth to curl into, no heartbeat to sleep against. She had one woman who hadn't planned any of this and decided it didn't matter. Every few hours, around the clock, feedings, warmth, gentle hands that the kitten slowly learned to trust. There were hard nights where that tiny body felt so fragile that hope seemed dangerous to hold, but she held it anyway. Week by week, the kitten grew stronger. Her eyes opened, her voice found itself. Her personality, quiet at first, then bold, then completely her own, began to fill the room. She named her Merida. It suited her perfectly. There was something in the way Merida carried herself. Something independent, something that said she had already survived the unsurvivable and wasn't particularly impressed by anything less. Merida grew up knowing only one world: warm floors, familiar hands, a woman who had chosen her before she was even old enough to choose back. She was loved completely. She knew it. But the house had a quiet that even love couldn't fully fill. His name was Hiccup. He had been at the rescue center for longer than anyone liked to say out loud. Not because he was aggressive, not because he was difficult, just because the right person hadn't walked through the door yet. The volunteers described him carefully. He needs patience. He needs someone who understands that trust isn't given, it's earned, slowly, on his terms. What they meant was this: he had been somewhere he thought was permanent, and then discovered it wasn't. That kind of hurt doesn't show on the outside, but it changes how a cat looks at the world, how carefully he watches, how long he waits before deciding someone is worth trusting. When she walked into the rescue center and saw him sitting at the back of his space, still, watchful, assessing, she recognized something in him. She sat down nearby, didn't reach, didn't push, didn't ask for anything, just stayed. He watched her for a long time. Then he took one slow, deliberate step forward. Just one, but it was the only answer she needed. She brought Hiccup home. The first meeting did not go well. Merida took one look at Hiccup and made her position absolutely, unmistakably clear. This was her house, her woman, her floors, her windows, her warm spots in the afternoon sun, every single one of them carefully claimed over years of quiet, undisputed ownership. Who exactly was this? Hiccup, for his part, was equally unimpressed. He had not come here to make friends. He had come because one woman had sat quietly beside him until he felt safe enough to take one step forward. That was the arrangement as far as he was concerned. The first week, they moved through the house like two countries with a firmly disputed border, each watching the other carefully, neither willing to concede an inch. She didn't force anything, didn't push them together, didn't try to manufacture a friendship that wasn't ready yet. She had learned that lesson already, years ago, with a tiny kitten and a doorstep, and a choice she hadn't been expecting to make. You cannot rush trust. You can only stay and wait and let it arrive in its own time. It arrived slowly. First, they tolerated the same room, then the same couch. Opposite ends, a carefully maintained distance, each pretending the other didn't exist. Then one afternoon she came home to find them asleep in the same chair, not touching, but close. She stood in the doorway and didn't say a word. Some things don't need commentary. The weeks that followed brought more of those small, quiet shifts. Hiccup started appearing at Merida's favorite window. Merida stopped leaving the room when he entered. The distance between them, which had started as a statement, gradually became something else entirely. One evening, Hiccup reached over and groomed the top of Merida's head. Once, quick, like he wasn't entirely sure how it would land. Merida went completely still. Then she leaned into it. That was the moment everything changed. What followed was the kind of love that fills a house without asking permission. Merida and Hiccup, the kitten rescued from a doorstep and the cat no one had chosen yet, became inseparable. They moved through the house like a unit, ate side by side, slept pressed together, chased each other down hallways at 2 a.m, and then curled up like nothing had happened. And then, one day, she noticed Merida was pregnant. She watched her carefully in those final days. Merida, who had come into the world in the most brutal way possible, saved by a stranger who became family, was now about to bring her own lives into the world. When the time came, it was hard. Anyone watching could see it clearly. The exhaustion, the effort, the fierce, determined love that pushes through pain because there is simply no other option. She stayed close the entire time, quiet, present, just as she had been on that very first night, years ago, when a tiny kitten needed someone to stay. The kittens arrived, small, perfect, impossibly new. Merida looked at them. Then she looked up at the woman who had saved her, and something passed between them that didn't need a name. Merida started her life on a doorstep beside a loss that should have been hers too. They found each other in a house built by a woman who simply kept saying yes. Yes to the kitten on the doorstep, yes to the cat at the back of the rescue, yes to the chaos and the noise and the 2 a.m. madness and all of it. Every single yes led here, a house full of lives that almost weren't. Did you ever rescue an animal that ended up saving you right back? Tell me in the comments. When Dad becomes one of the babies.